Creating path events. In previous videos, we covered creating point events and dealing with common errors. In this video, we'll cover creating path events. They're very similar to point events, and we won't dwell on similarities, but rather focus on the differences, of which there are three. First, you click multiple times to create a path. Second, you can set the path color and other graphic properties. And third, you can animate a path. So here we are with our scenario of U.S. Grant's trip to enroll at West Point. Let's open the toolbar, click on Create Path Event, and create a path event showing his trip by steamboat up the Ohio River from Ripley to Pittsburgh. Now I can zoom and move this around as much as I want during the creation of the path, but instead I'll just start here at Ripley and start to click, and as I click, points showing the path show up, and I can be as precise or imprecise as I like. Let's do a little shortcut there, and you can see when I hover over one of these points, it changes to a pointing finger. If I click on the left mouse and hold it down, I can drag that, make it a little more precise there. If I click on that arrow, it'll set it back to where it was before. So when I'm happy with the path, I click OK, and that brings up the event creation widget. So let's give it a title, Steamboat Trip to Pittsburgh. Okay. I'm not going to give it a description. The start time, notice that the default time for events now is the earliest event in the scenario, which is the wait in Ripley for a steamboat event, May 15th, 1839 at noon. We assumed in that case that he was going to wait in Ripley for a day, so let's assume that the steamboat starts on May 16th, and in his memoirs he tells us it takes about 3 days to get to Pittsburgh, so let's say that's the 19th and he arrives. So let's set the graphic properties, beginning with the line color. I click on the line color field, and that brings up the color picker. As I click anywhere within the color picker, you can see that the color changes appropriately. And this number is a hexadecimal number expressing the color, but you need not be concerned about that. On the map, this line shows up as red to fill in the eagle's outlines. Let's make it a nice dark blue. So we pick it a blue there, and over on the column, I can click there to make it as dark as I like. Let's make it kind of a navy blue there. Line width goes from 1, which is the thinnest, up to 5, which is the thickest. So let's make it a little bit thicker than it is, give it a 4. Line opacity will change it from completely opaque, which is 1, down to almost completely transparent, which is 1/10. We'll leave it at 1.0. Now notice, just because I'm changing these parameters doesn't actually change the appearance of the line yet. That won't happen until we hit save and the event is created. So looking at the animation, there are a couple of choices here. And first I'm going to show the default, which is the Google Maps provided arrow animated over the entire path. So I just leave it, arrow and entire path, click on save. The event's created. Now you can see we've got a change from the thin black line to a thicker dark blue line, which is what we want. But where's the arrow? Well, don't forget, this event that we just created begins on May 16th, but the time is only May 15th. So actually that event hasn't shown up yet. So if I move ahead to the 16th, here's our arrow, and that traverses the entire length of the path as long as that event is displayed. Well, that's not very interesting. So let's go to Edit the Event, select Steamboat Trip to Pittsburgh, edit that. Now notice that the points of the event are shown, so I can change the route if I want to. Let's go to Animation. The icon style. There are various choices I can make here. One would be to have no icon at all. Another would be to use the Google Maps place mark, the red teardrop, or we can have a custom icon. So let's go with that. In that case, History in Motion expects an icon file name, and the easiest way to do that is to simply pick an icon, and we've got an Ohio River steamboat there. Let's put that in. Now the path display says how much of the path do you want to show. We can show the entire path, which is what's happening here, or we can show only the past or only the future. So for example, if the steamer had made it up to Marquette, which is right over here, if we were showing the past only, it would show the path from Marquette back to Ripley. If we were showing the future only, it would show the path from Marquette up to Pittsburgh. Well, let's show the future only in this case, and we'll save it. So as before, we've got the blue line, but we've got no steamboat icon. And we ought to, right, because it's May 16th. Well, I'm going to go into this in more detail in the video on tips and hints for creating events. For the moment, just take my word for it that what we need to do is click on File and Refresh. And there's the steamboat. Notice, by the way, that the slider moved from the end to about a quarter of the way. That's because the refresh made History in Motion aware that this full scenario timeline now stretched from May 15th, not to May 16th, but all the way to May 19th. And May 16th is only about a quarter of the way of that time. So now if I click on the play button, time is starting to move, and so is the icon showing the steamboat along its path of the Ohio. And since we're showing the future part of the path only, you can see that there is nothing showing between Ripley and the steamboat, but from the steamboat to Pittsburgh, we have our blue path. So that concludes a discussion of creating path events, and in the next video, you'll see that path events and area events share a number of similarities.